Speedy Ortiz, Rabbit album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album, the first album in some time from Massachusetts-based indie rock group Speedy Ortiz. They really have taken off, haven't they? You know, since the 2010s, the early 2010s, they got a major push with their debut album, Major Arcana. This was an album that was, God, every single one of my friends named it their album of the year. It was pushed to me in all of my circles. People loved the hell out of this thing, and I really did not understand why. I mean, the nods to like grunge and noise pop were certainly interesting, but a lot of this album just was not the kind of indie that I was into at the time. A lot of the jagged riffs just kind of annoyed me more than anything, and I just felt like, I don't know, there was something off about the album, but I did enjoy their next album, Foiled Deer, a little bit more. I know it's sacrilege, I know, but at the same time, I would argue that the riffs are really catchy, the hooks are huge, it's just a better sounding album all around. But I still wouldn't consider myself a real fan of Speedy Ortiz until they dropped their last album, Twerpverse. That was an album that I was not expecting to enjoy at all, but ended up becoming probably one of my favorite indie rock albums of the year. I thought this thing was jam-packed, and I thought that the band was really performing at on all cylinders, all around, writing their best material. I thought it was a great sound for them overall. Now, it's been like 6 years since we've heard from Speedy Ortiz. It's been a while, so much so I decided to go in blind to see how they're sounding. And I'll just cut to the chase. I kind of put this at the same level as their last album, Twerpverse. I think it's, the band sounded really good. This album starts off with Kim Cattrall, and right off the bat, this is what I love to hear from Speedy Ortiz. I really do love the riff. I think it's one of the more memorable ones here. Sadie Dupuis' performance on this track is super snarky, in your face, and the band as a whole just sounds just so full. And more importantly, yeah, it's catchy as hell. This was the blast of indie energy I needed right now. Plus, I just love how genuinely noisy and chaotic it gets towards the end of the track. Well done. USO2 is also really good. Arguably the best track here, and this is the only single that I had heard leading up to this album. I loved it to begin with, and I still do love it. It's upbeat, it's streamlined, it's super catchy. It's a great balance between indie rock and power pop. The band sounds on top form. This is easily one of the best indie tracks I've heard all year. Scabs, on the other hand, is one of the weirdest and most eccentric tracks of the bunch. This track is armed with a really angular riff and this weird sense of robo-funk that I did not know this album needed, but it comes off pretty well. But it all comes together at the end of the day, from the sassy songwriting and the memorable hook. This track is great. Albeit a little straightforward, it's exactly where I personally like hearing Speedy Ortiz. And the Ballad of Y and S is probably one of the more straightforward tunes here, but it works as a really great, sort of soft reset for the band. The riff is on the simpler side, but the band break it up very nicely with another really memorable vocal performance from Sadie, as well as a hook that has been haunting me all week. It's a great reminder of what Speedy Ortiz can do with a more straightforward track. As a matter of fact, for a sort of comeback album, because it's been so damn long, the band sounds on top form. My only issue is there's like 3 or 4 tracks on this album that just bring back so many bad memories of the band's early years that are just not for me. I understand the hype. If you love it, that's great, but I'm not feeling it. Like, take for example, Plus One. What the hell is this? This, in 3 minutes, describes exactly everything that I don't like about those early years. It's so jarring. It's way too much. It doesn't even sound good. And Cry, Cry, Cry is a pretty big reach for the band. It's one of the more experimental moments here, and you get that from this opening intro. And then this riff bursts through, and I will give the track credit. This thing is heavy. But why is it so ugly once again? And this chorus is not where it should be. I'm honestly shocked it even made the cut. The Sunday, also late in the album, no bueno. And you know what, we're going to get to a more stripped down track that actually works in the band's favor a little bit later, but for now, we're stuck with this track, and it's really not up to snuff. I actually really like the use of slide guitar on this track, but everything else about this track, everything else about it just seems so pained. Like the vocal performance we get from Sadie here, and she sounds like she's going to break at any moment, and not in like a bluesy, emotional way either. Outside of that, though, there's a lot to love here. I do love Kitty. It may be the shortest track here, but it packs a punch. This thing is just a quick blast of energy. It's great indie rock with some power pop thrown in. It's pretty exciting. And I love the constantly shifting, seemingly always soloing guitar throughout this entire track. It's pretty cool stuff. Who's Afraid of the Bath? Truthfully, this may be my favorite track here, single or otherwise. It's one of the longer tracks here, and Speedy Ortiz really do take a stab at a much more pensive, brooding track. But the crunchy guitars, the great pacing, and this hell of a chorus really makes it come together. This seems to me like a complete thought, and it's one of the album's more, I don't know, left field and just kind of jagged tracks, which is usually a sound, I should say, that I'm just not into from them. Ranch vs. Ranch, easily the noisiest track here. It is heavy. It's a chaotic mess, but it's a joyous one that's held together with an awesome hook. All around, love the sheer determination on display. If I wanted to hear, pick one sound for Speedy Ortiz to do more with in the future, it's this right here. Emergency in Me may be the most classic Speedy Ortiz sounding track here. This sounds genuinely like it could have been ripped off of their debut, which usually I would avoid by the plague, but if there were tracks like this on there, maybe I would enjoy it after all these years. It's super catchy, it's passionate, it's just a lot of fun. It's probably one of the least noisy tracks here, but it's a great sound for them. And Brace Thee as a stripped down southern ballad, which I did not know this album needed. Very clearly it does. They actually do knock it out of the park with a softer tune. It's so bluesy, it's so rugged, there's a serious drama to this track. Sadie just sounds so raw. The authenticity is here in spades, and Sadie literally sounds like she's been doing these tracks for years. And yeah, it's almost 6 minutes, making it one of the longest Speedy Ortiz tracks of all time, but it is compelling for the entire time. And for one last blast of energy, Ghostwriter is great. The band with this finale doesn't sound like they're slowing down, they sound like they're speeding up. It's one of those chaotic tracks here. It's completely off the rails, constantly shifting. It's honestly hard to keep track of, but it's certainly an exciting finale. After all these years, I'm actually impressed with just how much they sound together, especially because right before they took their little hiatus, they were actually putting out some of the best stuff as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, this album shows them returning to form. They haven't skipped a beat, clearly. There's even some really good experiments that I'd like to hear more of in the future. My only issue is when this album gets bad, it gets so bad so quickly, and I have serious PTSD to their early stuff, which I'm sorry. I wish it was for me, but it's not. But for now, I'm feeling a very strong 7 on this album. But let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.